answers. TV6 investigates.
Housing is becoming a lot more expensive for the 40% of Quad Cityans who rent their homes. Prices are skyrocketing, and there aren't as many rentals as there used to be. Good evening, I'm Sharon DeRieg.
And I'm William Ingalls. TV6 Investigates Matt Christensen has been bringing us stories on the housing crisis for the past 2 months and wraps up his series tonight with a look at the people trying to solve the problem. Here's the final part of The Rent Trap.
The Quad Cities is at a turning point. When it comes to housing, there aren't enough affordable places to live. And if things don't change soon...
We don't want a tent city. We don't, the homeless populations just in droves living on the streets or on the sidewalks. We have to provide for our community, and that means good, safe, decent, affordable housing.
Stacy Kaiser is chairwoman of the Quad Cities Housing Council and the executive director of Vera French Housing, which helps people with mental illnesses find reliable shelter. It broke ground last month on a 30-unit complex next to its resource center at Davenport. But Stacy knows it's just a drop in the bucket. That's because the Quad Cities has lost more than 30% of its low-income housing units in the past decade. While larger homes are popping up in new developments, smaller, more affordable homes are disappearing. And that affects everyone, not just the poor.
Once you have people housed, good, safe, decent, affordable housing, you're less reliant on medical systems, emergency systems, the police force. There are so many governmental systems that they aren't as taxed when people have good, safe, decent, affordable housing.
That's getting harder to find. For units that are still available, rents are skyrocketing faster than people can keep up. A typical two-bedroom in the Quad Cities now costs $900 a month, meaning you have to make about $36,000 a year to afford it. But that's still out of reach for many. 11% of the Quad Cities lives in poverty. It's Tom Fisher-King's job to help them find shelter. He's the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, which builds new homes with some of the area's most vulnerable.
I wish that we had a never-ending checkbook and we could accept every family that applies, but that's not real. And so these families, generally single moms.
Habitat's built more than 120 homes in the Quad Cities since 1993. Tom also knows that's just a drop in the bucket. But he's noticing a new sense of urgency around the housing crisis, whether that's for building units or cracking down on landlords with problem properties.
The building collapse was terribly unfortunate, and so we continue to see that those rules and regs are being strengthened, but people know it, people saw it, and that was very real for some.
The Quad Cities Tenant Alliance has advocated for stricter policies for landlords. Davenport's advancing a new ordinance that says tenants can withhold rent when there are code violations.
The tenants would not be paying rent, and they would not owe back rent for the rent that they missed. And essentially, it would incentivize the landlord to repair their building the way they should. And it would bring a sense of urgency to it.
There's a lot at stake, according to Rock Island Alderman Jenny Clausen-Swanson. She said cities can still do more when it comes to facilitating affordable housing, but it's going to take a community-wide effort.
The heartbeat of a city are its residents. If you don't have people living in your city, you really don't have a city.
In the Quad Cities, Matt Christensen, TV6 Investigates.
The Quad Cities Housing Council has a roadmap for helping solve the crisis called Silos to Solutions. The full report is available on our news app and website.